Welcome to this episode of Awaken Your Inner Genius. I have my fellow panelist with us, John Bonsall, former president of the University of Science and Philosophy, and Karen Elkins, the editor of Science to Sage magazine. So we'll have our other panelists, Jim Porter and his wife. They'll be joining us hopefully in the future. Please keep both of them in your have heartfelt thoughts for them as they go through their own health challenges. And we'll have Ken Pearson, our other panelist, join us back next week when we start Unit 7. That is the plan as he's recovered from hip replacement surgery. So before we dive in, we have an awesome program here tonight and some fun news to share with everybody. But let us begin. We know everyone's had a busy holiday weekend. Here we are on December 1st. Let us just tune in to the universal heartbeat of the ocean. You are welcome. Love that is poured in together. And whether you are a first time joining us or whether you've been with us the past 6 months, have complete confidence to take away exactly what is needed. When you're ready, your eyes. Okay. So a very, very exciting times here these days. So we have some fun news before we dive into this particular lesson. We have just reached past the 500 subscriber mark. Can we just celebrate for a moment? I mean, this is awesome. We were so excited about that. So a gracious thank you to everyone too with you. We are going to be starting off with one of our questions that we received earlier. So we're going to dive into that in just a moment. Before we do that, I was also going to mention to you that we are almost close, okay? We're inching closer to the number of watch hours that we need here on YouTube in order to start selling the t-shirts that we've been telling you about and having those available that many of you have asked. So we have already reached almost 2,200 watch hours. We need 3,000 watch hours. So we've now accomplished the 500 subscribers. A gracious thank you. So any of you over the holidays, if you happen to feel like turning on your YouTube and just having the videos run, know that you will be helping us reach that goal. So a gracious, gracious thank you. Hello, Rita. Hello, Deb, Deborah, Karen, and hello to all of our viewers here on TikTok and on YouTube. So a good evening to everyone. And so why don't we go ahead and tune in? We had, John, I'm going to ask if you'll read this we got an email from one of our watchers, Deb Tonkin, and if you'll just share with everyone what she had to say in both paragraphs. One was news that she was inspired and the other was a question.
It would be my pleasure. Anyway, Kim addressed, excuse me,
this came from Dee Tonkin. She sent it to all of us.
This is Dee addressing us. Yes.
Podcast panel.
She said, I was so inspired by your last Awaken podcast that I dove back into lesson 23 again. As a result, I formed another book idea for the Nana Dee and Airy book series, which is based upon the science of the Russell teachings. The Trinity of Motion. Draft of the cover is attached. I am working on the story as illustrations as I am writing this. Just wanted to share my appreciation for all the hard work and let you know that your teaching of the home study course is impacting and inspiring others.
Oh,
well, that's beautiful. I have a question for Sunday. Since we're doing questions and answers, is the point of rest at the bottom curve of the wave and also at the top of the wave curve? Then is it return to rest at the bottom of the repeating wave? If so, within the wave is the simultaneous sequence rest at the trough of the wave, action, the upward part of the wave, rest, at the top of the wave, reaction, the downward slope of the wave, then rest again. And she asked us to please help clarify this understanding or misunderstanding this Sunday. So for our readers, our listeners, I'm going to ask you, well, Kimberly, do you want to just draw the wave on your
All right, so do you want me to draw a straight line first?
straight line first,
Okay.
and then just do the crest and the trough up and down. That's it. Go ahead. Now, I'm going to ask you, Kimberly, if you would go back to the chart over your right shoulder. Could we do that?
We sure can.
So Kimberly drew this. So just imagine turning that 90 degrees and you're looking down that. You see the straight line in the middle there, guys, where all the octave waves are centered? That's the fulcrum. That's where God is. And each wave, crest and trough, is where action is. There's not rest there. That's where action, that's where life is. That's where the manifestation of idea is. And that straight line is where God is, and that's where zero is. So that line is the fulcrum for all idea. So that's a great question by D, and I could see where, it could be confusing. And Kimberly, tell you what, take your pen and draw a matching circle, half circle underneath each one.
All right, you want me to draw a half circle underneath this one?
Yep. And
you want me to do it in a different color?
No, well, you can if you want.
I only have blue, so we'll try it.
That's all right. That'll work. That'll work.
So you want me to do this?
Yep, and go up and down. And wow, what do we see there? The helix. Isn't that interesting? But what you're seeing are spheres. Science calls them loops of force. But can you see that now twisting? Can you see that twisting motion?
Ah, you mean like the toy that we showed last week, John?
Yeah. You want to go ahead and bring the toy in? Kimberly's got new toys, guys. She's excited.
I have toys. You know what? I almost want to say welcome everyone to our cosmic playground.
Yes.
So there we go. We were talking, and then John, what you were talking about is when it starts to do that.
Yes. So as you're looking along that wave, that line, you have to try to envision spheres. And you got the 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is what is happening. And that motion continues and repeats itself into infinitum. And again, whether it's macro or micro, that sequence is forever throughout the universe.
Karen, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, John, you can add. I was going to say to James, add it now. Yeah, and it was trying to, with the way of imagining that each one of those is a torus field, and in the field, when you look at it, that's where it's turning it this way. You can see that that's always in that motion, but it is in that still center point where the quietness is, no different than like a tornado. So when you look at the Walter Russell charts, there you see the outside waves, but also that flow. So it's in the center where you want to be. And then I showed that, so everybody usually sees a waveform, but you don't look at it as a cutaway. So if you look at it as a cutaway, it's the dead center where it's quiet. It's again like the hurricane. So that's just to give you an idea of dimension and flow. And so and that's exactly what Kimberly was showing. So that's just sort of a way of looking at it.
So what you will find here is your panel is doing all that they can. We would probably even do cartwheels if that would help you understand the Walter Russell teachings, just about. Okay. So here we go to the panel. Why don't we go ahead? We are now here at the end of Unit 6. And we are in lesson 24, which is the Q&A. So for those of you that are new, joining us for the first time, we want to say a gracious thank you. Welcome to the channel. This is based on the works of Walter and Leo Russell. It's a home study course that is done 1 unit per month over the course of a year, and it is meant to be done every single year so that you raise in consciousness and you can begin to understand things at a greater level. So John is a 50-year student. Ken Pearson Online is a 30-year student. Karen has been working with the Russell work for the past 13 years, but this is her first time with the work. I am a 3-year student in this lifetime anyway, and we have Margaret Rue with us, who has been a guest panelist, and Margaret has been studying the work for how long, Margaret?
Oh, since the 70s.
Since the 70s. Margaret says, I'm not going to the years. 18 years. So, and Margaret
Hanging
had
in
a
there with
chance.
John.
Margaret actually worked with Leah Russell for 10 years. And so John also worked with Leah Russell for 2 years. And so we've got two incredible panelists here along the way. So I'm so thrilled to have you. Welcome, Margaret. It's always like a big bonus and a treat. So if you are all
thank
ready,
you.
I'm going to go ahead and direct us to our actual home study course. If you would, we're going to turn to page 473. And I'm going to have us start off here. And Margaret, if you would, I'm going to have right there with the highlighted sentence, the very first sentence for this particular one. Would you mind reading that? What's there in all caps? It says all questions.
Yeah. All questions are answerable in light. Thou art light. Thou canst answer them.
All right. What does that actually mean in your words? Well, from what you know, Margaret, before I ask John.
I think that in lesson in unit 2, when they speak of their illuminations, they were actually right inside the fulcrum. So when you're inside the fulcrum and then looking out, you know it all. So when you're in the light, you're actually right in the fulcrum. You're right in the center of the action. And it's really stillness. It's stillness.
Stillness. Okay. So yes,
Yeah.
Karen.
And in my working at things of late, as I'm studying this whole sort of Q&A actually refers a lot to the idea of water. And since I'm working on a book on water, when you realize water is made of hydrogen and oxygen, it means it carries the full range of oxygen, which means it carries the full range of light. And since we're 99.9% light at a molecular level, everything is available to you when you get still. And so there's that full range in there. And we are light. We are light beings, come in like the rainbow on that spectrum that John talks about, that we just showed us. That's my thought, is since we are already made of it, we're already tapped into it, we're already one with it.
All right, I love that. So John, I'm going to ask you if you would please go to the sentence that starred there, because it talks about complete knowledge.
Yes, this is very important. I was going to emphasize this. Complete knowledge or omniscience centers your consciousness, but the unfolding awareness is a process which is measured by the intensity of your desire. So you are light, and your awareness of you being light and being the same light as the creator, it will grow, right? Like going from a 5-watt bulb to, a 500-watt bulb. There will be a process along the way. So allow yourself, to experience that. But there's a beautiful quote. Leo used to repeat this, and Margaret will love this too, is that when you have God as your teacher, you need no earthly teachers. All right. And I mean, just think of the knowledge that God gave Walter and Leo Russell, right, to give to man, which is 1,000 years ahead of its time. And here we are 100 years later, we're trying to, re-give it to the world again, and we'll do our best. So, but that's a tough challenge for everyone, Kimberly, is to acknowledge that they are light and same, and I and my Father are one.
So let's pause for a minute. We have almost 100 new subscribers just in the past week. So this is very, very exciting. And so for those of you, if you would, John and Margaret, share with people just in a nutshell, what is the home study course and why is it so important? Why would we have our folks on TikTok that are scrolling through TikTok right now and saying, what am I going to watch? What am I going to watch? Why would they watch this and tap into the home study course? So I'm going to start with Margaret, and then I'm going to come to John. One sentence, and then I'll go to Karen.
Well, Leo always said that, the great challenge in life is to try and understand why we're here and what our purpose is. And the home study course actually gives you that roadmap, because a lot of people don't really know why they're on earth. They might have desires, they might want to create, but they don't have the big picture. And so the home study course gives you the big picture, and it gives it to you step by step. And everybody ponders all of these life's questions. I don't know anybody that doesn't, you know. And so it's just nice to know that the Russells left a roadmap for us.
They did. I love that. I love that. John?
The home study course, you know what is the least known science of all sciences?
What
is the
that?
science of man.
Mm.
And that is the home study course, the science of man, the science of the cosmos. So if you want to grow, if you want to be enlightened, if you want to have those questions to be answered that you've had within you forever, stick with us, and they're going to be answered for you as we move along.
I love that. I love that. Karen, one sentence description of the home study course, then I'm going to add mine before we continue.
I just to add on, there's a different fraction, is that faith doesn't make things grow, but your knowledge of how natural law works is great. And that's what this course gives you.
Okay. I love all the perspectives. And what I would say about the home study course is it helps you turn your light on. 4 words. Turn your light on, which I think is incredibly powerful. So let's dive in again, shall we? At the bottom here of 473, it says this. It says, let us remind you that when you search for the answer to anything which confuses you, search for it in cause and never in effect. So John, explain that right quick before we go on to that next paragraph and talk about balance.
Right. Because it's like traditional medicine. You know, they treat the cause, but they never treat the effect. All right. So cause. So once you know the cause of any.
Or you tell me that they treat the cause or they treat the effect?
The effect. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They treat the effect because most of the time they don't know what the cause is, but they treat the effect and not the cause. So an effect is like the kaleidoscope. Right? The more you turn it, the more variations that you see.
I need a kaleidoscope here. So
effect can be, you know, the multiplicity of effect, you know, is endless. All right. But what the Russells are saying, to short circuit that journey, if you know the cause of all things, now you got it. Now you're there. Now you can address whatever it is, an illness or a troubling business or relationship.
And I will tell you, having taught this issue of cause and effect in my world of corporate systems thinking, we humans have a very difficult time of connecting these kinds of things, understanding this whole issue of cause and effect. So I think the Russells do a powerful job of connecting this. Let's go to Deborah's comment right quick in the chat box. And we're so glad to hear from some of you. Please tune in. Feel free to place a link. So Deborah says, hi, and the stillness, science, and spirituality.
Become one.
Become one. Thank you very, very much. And we also have a comment here from Rebecca. Rebecca's tuning in and says, would like to think the study of man and woman. So when you were talking about the study of the science of man, love that.
Well, when when we say the study of man, you know, it's not man, it's the inclusivity of the idea of mankind.
Mankind.
Man and woman. We don't really speak in like that, but I appreciate her giving us a heads up on that.
Thank you. Well, and earlier in the home study course, we've actually, Walter and Leo brought up the fact that they wish there was another way to be able to say it. So let's keep going. And it says 474. I'm going to ask John if he'll read that first highlighted sentence where it says balance is the key.
Balance is the key to the answer or the solution for any problem whatsoever which arises from an interchange between the two opposite extensions of the zero balance.
All right. So explain that just a little bit, John, as we continue.
Balance. You know, it's funny, even though I'm not an astrologer, an astrologist, and I don't, get into astrology thing, but I am a Libra. And, our sign is the scales. And so that's my whole life is balance. And Leo, I got to tell you, if there was one word that I could give our audience that Leo gave to me to simplify your life, is to seek balance in all things. So whether you're decorating, whether you're, driving or creating something, keep that in mind, because if it's out of balance, you'll recognize it.
Yeah, well, John, Ken and I are moving into a place and on the mountains, and John was helping me the other day, and he makes everything in decorating balance, and I never did. So I'm beginning to think that must have been my problem for my entire life, John. Okay, that must have been. I did not understand the notion of balance. We'll have to just see. Okay, so for all of you that are tuning in here, let's go ahead and go around to this where it says the circle of the highlight. It says before you ask anybody to answer a question for you, it will be of greater benefit to you if you would first meditate upon it after first desiring to know the answer from within yourself. You will grow mentally stronger that way. So I wanted to ask John and Margaret if you would just comment on that, because even though we are lovingly going through the home study course, the course was based on the fact that deep down, when you meditate, you will find the answer with your creator. Margaret?
Yeah, I think that a really nice trick is if you have something that's troubling you, if you kind of write it onto your heart right before you go to bed. And what you'll find is in the stillness, it might happen in the middle of the night. You might wake up knowing, oh my God, I know what to do. Or it may be the morning time you'll wake up. So, in other words, you're kind of asking for guidance deep within yourself. And while you're still in the night, it's as though God answers that. So
Okay.
it comes from out of the blue.
Out
So
of the blue.
if there is something troubling you, just come right out and ask for guidance, and it'll come.
All right, John?
So I'll build on Margaret's response there. You know how our buddy Ken, he loves his three omnis.
Yes.
There he is. All right, get him, boy.
Yeah, I do, pal. Let's see what
All right.
you got to say about that.
All right. So in regard to the paragraph, what they're referencing is that you are an omniscient being, which means you know all things, but you have to allow yourself to accept that. And like Margaret said, find a little spot of peace and quiet, meditate upon it, and the answer will come to you in the measure of your desire.
Okay, so I'm going to dive into this. The first question from this particular lesson here, and the question starts on the bottom of 474, and it says, this was a student question that was sent to Walter and Leo. I am deeply confused regarding my own individual soul and what you term as the universal soul. If my individual soul, which I assume I have as part of the universal soul, as one drop of water is part of the ocean, how can it still be my individual soul for reincarnating as such when it loses its identity in the universal soul, as the drop of water loses its identity when put back into the ocean? Okay, big answer here. Big answer. So
I'm glad the Russells are answering it.
I know.
Does that mean you're reading that next part, John?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, why don't you read those first two paragraphs and then we'll open it up for discussion, John.
All righty. Very good. This question is ahead of the lessons, but a brief answer will not only help satisfy your curiosity and remove part of the veil of your confusion, but will help prepare you for the lesson when it does come. The answer is that God has a wonderful bookkeeping system to record all of the thoughts and actions of his imagined universe of seeming separate things. All thoughts are recorded permanently in the zero elements of matter known as the inert gases, which are the seeds of all idea. Every thought, every desire, and every action of yours is what constitutes your individuality. There are cosmically recorded in these seeds, which surround that still center of consciousness, which is yours, just as a still center of gravity is surrounded by moving matter of Earth.
So I want to go down and mention what I highlighted in blue before I ask Ken to comment. We'll see how much energy he has to be with us here tonight. It says your body can be compared to the drop of water returned to the ocean, for your body and the earth are one. But your body is not your identity or your individuality. So Ken, do you want to chime into what this discussion is for this question?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. If you think about a drop of water, and you think about what happens to it when it's removed. Let's put it in a cup, and then you stick that cup out in your backyard, right? And it's sunny, and you come back an hour later and the drop is gone. Well, it's not dead. It didn't refold. It's just evaporated. So it's beyond the sense ranging, but the water drop is still there. It really never leaves the ocean. It only seems to leave the ocean. So we are, as you'll learn in lessons, it talks about one soul, not many souls. We are all, right, God, trying to find ourselves in duality, which is a struggle, which is difficult. But as we're being taught, we are God to the extent in which we relate our lives, our thought, feelings, and actions to God. But if we have thoughts and we have feelings and we take actions and we aren't doing those in a cooperative relationship with God, then God can't be there because we're not allowing God to be there. But we are all trying to find ourselves, and therefore we're all sons and daughters of the Most High. So for sons and daughters, we're of that lineage. Therefore, we're not divided anymore when we don't have these bodies, this duality. But that drop of water is going to evaporate, and then it's going to go up and hit up in the sky where it gets cold, and it's going to condensate and become a cloud. And then it's going to rain, and then the clouds are going to disappear. And you wouldn't say the clouds died and they weren't there anymore. They've just transformed into what? Rain. And now it's clear skies. You go back out and you look at that cup, and the water's back in the cup. You wouldn't say it's the same body, but you couldn't say it wasn't a part of the same body. So therefore, we only seemingly depart from God, but that's the illusion, right? Whatever action you take is going to be recorded in the space that surrounds your soul. That's how God keeps a recording system. So we don't get away with anything, but at the same time, the goal here, ultimate goal, is to become one with God in all things that we do. So our soul and God's soul are one.
Yes. Okay. So anybody want to add to that, Karen?
I'm just going to say that is to add on to that one, is to recognize we are that drop. We are all of that. We all are part of the same symphony. As I said before, that one drop has the full spectrum in it. And when I found the images between this thing called the Babbitt atom, which is shaped like a heart, which is somebody thinking that's the periodic table, it overlays perfectly with Walter Russell's. It overlays perfectly with how the heart pumps. And then it exactly how a water drop works. They're all in one. So it's like the mechanics of it are so absolutely spectacular that when you finally get that's the heartbeat of the universe and it's in within you, tap in and know it and recognize it. And the sense is there. So,
well, this is why we actually start with the ocean as that meditation at the beginning, was to have people tune into that universal heartbeat. Margaret, you wanted to add something before we go on to the next question?
Yeah, I think Leah really said it best when she indicated that the inert gas is like a seed. So our individuality is like a seed, in the same way that an acorn is a seed for a full oak tree. Now, the actual oak tree, the idea of the oak tree is in the seed, but the acorn is still of the earth. So in other words, our individual soul is recorded in the same way that a seed is.
Okay.
And again, the seed is the idea. So it's the idea which is dimensionless.
Okay.
Kimberly, if I could just add a little something to that real quickly. So just imagine everyone having their own CD, and every thought, every action that you've ever had since your beginning is recorded on that CD, which is housed in an inert gas. And that's God's storage system. All right. So every time you incarnate, that CD comes up, you put it in and you start playing it and off you go again. And every thought you had and every action you'll have in that lifetime is recorded in your own private CD, and it goes into infinitum.
Okay, there you go. Let's keep going then. For all of you that are joining in, Rebecca says this in the comment, and please feel free to invite other people on other channels to join us here this evening. Rebecca says this. She said earlier when you were talking, Margaret, so true, Margaret. Then if you would read that for me, Karen.
Oh, I'm sorry, where?
Can you read Rebecca's comment for me, please?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was reading. So true. Margaret's doing a lot lately for awakening to answers.
Any guidance many nights, so you keep a paper and pencil near. Yes.
Yeah,
so
I do.
What you were saying is going to stillness that Margaret said, go into the evening, and then Rebecca, that's spot on. Absolutely love that. And we've got some other comments here. So let's go ahead and jump down to 4676. Next question that they came up with was this. The student that they put this in here was highlighted. If you would, John, read the question and highlighted yellow.
Yes. Please define what you mean by mind, self, and mind, self, consciousness, and cosmic consciousness, intellect, intelligence, and light.
All right, who wants to dive into that? Are we going to read the answer, or is someone going to brave through that?
Well, if we want to maintain credibility, we better read the answer.
Yeah, that's that. Now you're thinking.
All right. So, Ken, are you up to reading that first paragraph?
Sure. By mind and light, we mean that God, that which is God, it is the still invisible light from which the two visible lights of the divided light spectrum universe extend. The two lights of motion are the same, for they are waves. When the direction of motion is towards a compressed center of gravity, however, the light increases in intensity from the blackness of space to the incandescence and decreases in intensity as gravity expands.
Okay, so John, why don't you go into the next paragraph, because I'd like to get us through this whole answer before we discuss it.
Right. When the direction of light is outward from incandescence towards space, its luminosity lowers gradually to the blackness of space. Putting it more simply, we might say that there is one visible light, which is divided to appear to be two visible lights. The invisible light is black to the senses, and the two visible lights are luminous to the senses.
Okay, so consciousness means the same as light and mind. Notice that the L and M are both capitalized, light and mind, but its connotations suggest awareness or cognizance of itself. Cosmic consciousness means an awareness of the cosmos or creation and its processes and purposes. All right, that's a pretty big sentence. And Margaret, if you would, finish us up with that last sentence before we discuss.
Intelligence is knowing. God is the great intelligence, which is all-knowing. Any man's intellect is the measure of his awareness of God in him, which means the measure of his knowing.
Okay, who wants to dive into Ask and Comment? And for anybody listening, please feel free to place things in the chat box. All those on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. Go ahead and give us your comments, your questions. On the panelists, who wants to dive into it? To me, I really found it very powerful when it said cosmic consciousness means an awareness of the cosmos or creation and its processes and purposes. Can we just say how profound that is, John?
Yes. You know, I was thinking of this exact scenario here today, and actually many times over. And, you know, with AI, all right, now think about what AI is. So all that man has acquired in regard to knowledge and statistics and facts and happenings and history and everything is gathered as AI. All right. So if you wanted to think of your creator as AI, all right, you could do that in a way. But AI has no ability to think, and it has no ability to desire anything. So without thinking and without desiring, it can't manifest anything. All it can do is, like the kaleidoscope, just take effect and just pull it together and mix match it and try to have some kind of, you know, structure to it.
Well, what if you did think of AI differently? We could just consider it all-knowing intelligence. I mean, let's just be honest. If we think about it as all knowing,
No,
Ken,
it's not all knowing.
it's not all knowing.
No,
Intelligence?
because AI is just simply
I
what
wasn't
is.
saying AI was intelligence. I was saying for our purposes.
Talking
Oh, I
about
beg your
God,
pardon.
John.
Our
Talking
I
purposes.
about
beg your
God.
pardon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No. I'm not giving that much credit to AI, John. Ken, you want to comment, and then I'll ask Margaret, and we'll go on to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's really trying to help people to understand what we're trying to figure out. What's the difference between thinking and being tapped into cosmic consciousness and acting from there? And that's something, a bit of a learning curve through this message, is the difference of me recognizing. So anything my body needs is thinking, but when I'm considering what my soul wants and what my soul desire is, that's seeking knowing. I'm seeking an inner relationship. There is an application. We call it mindfulness, is a word a lot of people misuse all the time, which is right now to have God with me on this podcast, because I don't have to wait to ask God to come. I'm already coming with God. Whether I turn right or left in life, I used to have to prepare. Hey, God, which way should we go? But today I've been given the freedom of choice because I'm going with God because I have a relationship. This message is all about each page gets you one step closer to having a union with your creator and being at oneness with God. Listen, that sun you're looking at that you think is hot, well, one day it's going to burn out. So what do you think is going to happen to Earth? One day the Earth idea will be done. And thus the man-woman idea will be done. And we're taught in these lessons is the supreme goal is for man-woman to reach Christ consciousness. As Christ said, the works I do are nothing to the works ye shall do. That is the supreme goal. That is what's termed cosmic consciousness. When we're one with God because we invited God into our thoughts, into this moment to be with me, guide me as I listen. Help me hear what you'd have me hear or say what you'd have me say. So it's not coming from self, from little self. It's coming from big self,
right.
which is the cosmic self.
All right. Anything you want to add to that, Margaret, before I go to the next question?
No, I think our senses are the big battle, I mean, the world looks confusing, but I think when you come right back to the Russell's teaching, it's about balance. Like if there's ever kind of trouble in your life or trouble in relationships, it's usually going to be because something is out of balance.
Out of balance.
So you have to just simply figure out how to bring it back into balance. Otherwise, there'll be ills, a lot of difficulties in life. So you have to continually rebalance whatever it is that's ailing you.
So we have a question from Karen in the chat box, and I have a very big answer to this question, but I'm going to ask our seasoned Russell students to answer it first. So Karen's question will come up, and she says this. She says, does the earth have consciousness? Can consciousness be individual? So I'll give John a shot, Margaret, and then I have a big answer to this one.
No, the earth does not have consciousness. The only thing that has consciousness is the idea of man. And that's it.
All right, we'll debate that. John, what is your answer, Margaret?
Yeah, well, I would agree with John that the earth does not have consciousness. I mean, I think some animal life might have a little inkling, but really man is supreme as far as looking inward. And the Russells in their earlier lessons spoke of the dawn of consciousness. And it only arrived maybe 5,000 years ago. And we're still in an infant stage when it comes to our total man in the mass unfolding. We're still at our infancy.
So I will lovingly and respectfully disagree with the two of them. So I, at a deep soul level, know that the earth has consciousness. I have been able to tap into consciousness on many levels in this journey. And so I absolutely respect the answers of the longtime Russellian students and honor that. But there is a soul knowing that I have. And also I understand that when I work with any different entities and organizations, that all things that end up coming together with intention end up birthing into a consciousness. So our creations take on consciousness. So I, at a heart level, know that the earth has consciousness. So Karen, you'll have to come up with your own answer and go into meditation. The one who asked us the question, Karen, not Karen Elkins.
I was agreeing with you. Kimberly, I agree with you 100%. We're all made of the same stuff, and each stuff is animated. Each particle has a bit of information and how its geometry and things work. So I think all of the elements are actually dancing together and responding. So I actually agree with Kimberly.
All right,
Thus
Ken?
speaks the newer students. And consciousness denotes free will would be my answer to that. And what is it about the earth that has free will?
Yeah, well, so here's the thing, folks, is that I'm going to, and as facilitator, I try to remain neutral in many of our conversations. And so who knows, I might receive a lot of emails like I've received sometimes after these shows of people who are mad at one thing or another that we've said. So I, at a deep soul level, simply at a deep soul level understand that we're going to have an understanding of this stuff at an even greater level. And so while I respect all of the Brazilian students that have studied this, I also believe that there's more coming. But I do believe out of all the works that are out there in the world, the Russell work is some of the most amazing work to help us go on to that level. So since we'll all lovingly agree to disagree, John has one more comment. He can't stand it before we go to the next question.
So
no passive aggressiveness there, pal.
For something to have consciousness means that you have the ability to think and know. And anything that is physical, whether it's a damn rock, whether it's a tree, whether it's an animal, whatever. Man is the only thing in creation that is conscious.
Conceive idea. Can conceive idea.
There you have it. So the earth doesn't know that the earth is the earth. And it doesn't have a consciousness, and it doesn't now, but it does operate within universal law and natural science within how God has created and structured the universe. So that's all I'm going to say.
I will still respectfully disagree, and I still love you. All right, next question, 478. On the bottom there, it says, the question says this, where I have the blue bracket. It says, you say when God decentrates, oh my goodness, I think I almost blew past our first break, you guys. I am so sorry. I blew right past our first break.
I know. I've been holding it for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Everyone, please forgive me. We got too into the conversation tonight. We do try to take a break at the 30-minute mark. I'm laughing so much. Enjoy your 3-minute break. We'll have a beautiful inspiration quote, and we'll return in 3. All right, if you'll find your way back, if you're within earshot. I'm so sorry that we slipped right by that. That's what happens when you're having fun, and that is what we do is in having cosmic fun. So before we dive into the question that's in 479, I do want to pull up the question from Western Flora. So John, I'm going to let you read this one and take a shot at answering it because this one's a pretty big question here. It says, "Do you think?" Go ahead, John.
Oh, do you think Walter named Tom Ion to spell mote ion as if read by a pendulum? I have no idea what the hell that means.
All right, so
I can't answer it.
he's asking about motion. It's a play on the word motion is what the question was asked. So he was just taking a look at the letters and actually was tying into the pendulum of some of the things that we said before. So as John said, we have no answer to that, but Western Flora just wanted you to know that we saw the question there. So I want to encourage everybody to please keep asking questions. So let's go to 479. And the question
I think there's a way to answer that question.
Okay.
When you see a plane in the sky flying by, you see the metal form ripping through the air, but what you don't see is a vacuous space behind it that's equal in proportion to the force going forward is going backwards. So as it's happening, it's unhappening. It would be the best way, I think, to answer that question.
All right, we'll try it. We'll try it. So question on 479 is this. Now, some of you might especially relate to this question because I chuckled when I read it. It says, "Some parts of the day I find myself doing wonderful work. It goes fast and I feel sure of myself. At other times, however, I seem to lose my power and skill and I make many mistakes which annoy me. Could you tell me what is the matter? Has it anything to do with inability to concentrate?" So John, why don't you pick a few things out of the answer there that you'd like to bring up for people for us to discuss?
Well, let me read it quickly and then we will analyze it. And the Russells say, "Your trouble is not inability to concentrate, but inability to balance both swings of the pendulum of your thinking. When you're doing good work joyfully, and it is going fast with but few mistakes, it is because you are concentrating normally after a period of decentration or rest. When you start working in the morning, you will find a period of freshness, which will last for 2 or 3 hours of normal work routine. Staleness then sets in because you do not balance your concentrative effort." You want me to finish that?
I would, because I think this is an important one and it has a great deal of practical application. And after you answer your comments, I'm going to ask Margaret to comment on how Leo reacts to this.
Very good. If you open your thinking to a stopping point, expand it, stop thinking anything for just a few moments, you will find that you can go on for another period of 2 or 3 hours. And you can keep that up during a whole day or 8 or 10 hours if you take brief intervals of unwinding the tensity of your concentrative thinking. Just stop and look out of the window or off into the sky or even a brief period, and your tenseness will unwind just like the unwinding of a watch spring. You know, I think our fellow friends south of the border with their siestas, they got it, man. This is no big secret to them.
True.
You know, it's action, reaction, rest. So the closer you are to an awareness of self, the longer you can hold that. All right. But then, like the Russells say, then you start losing your train of thought. All right. Then you allow fatigue to set in. All right. So the answer to that is you pause, concentrate a little bit, rest a little bit, and whatever it is that works for you, just staring out into the distance or a few moments of privacy. So whatever works for you. So that's the secret.
Well, and John, what was Walter's premise about the way he did his work? And then I'm coming to Margaret.
Well, Walter's secret to his success, one of the most prolific human beings in our history, is that every 2 hours, Walter Russell would venture into a new idea or a new thing. And then he could come back to that previous idea or a previous project with new enthusiasm and new energy.
Okay. All right. And so, Margaret, you witnessed this firsthand, even with Leo.
Right. And Leo always took moments of decentration. So she would spend several hours with people and then she would go upstairs. She had a favorite settee and she would decentrate, usually for 20 minutes. And then that gave her a fresh slate so she could work for another 2 hours, usually doing letters because she had a lot of questions that would come through the mail. But I think what's really telling in this response is that if you have a lot to accomplish in your workaday world, if you can do 2 hours of concentrative activity and then hold back a little, even if it's just for 10 minutes, and then work at something different for another 2 hours. It's like you're starting the day anew because you've got a new project, and then hold back for another 10, 20 minutes, and then start again on another project. So
Okay.
it's a really, it's an excellent way to get more out in activity within a day's work.
Karen?
Yeah, just for me, when I work really hard, if I actually take a break and it gives God time to tell you what you've been missing. So yet he actually goes, oh, you haven't thought about that. Oh, okay. And so if you take a walk, you do something just your way, it allows for a space for him to talk to you, him or he, she, whatever, right?
All right. So just taking a look as as James there scrolls through some of the illustrations, when you were mentioning, John, that Walter has done all of these drawings and all of this artwork and all of this, I mean, let's just, for anybody who's brand new to Walter Russell, taking a look at these images, if you could just in a nutshell remind them of all these different things that Walter did.
Well, these are just scientific drawings. Can you imagine his architecture and his paintings and his portraits and his book writings, less alone, the Homesteading Course and the Universal One, The Secret of Light, Atomic Suicide.
Yes.
Right? Look at those drawings. Aren't they amazing? I'll tell you what, I never get tired of seeing those. Those are amazing.
I never do either. And I want to bring up something that was very powerful when I first walked into the museum is do you remember that Walter and Leo were at a time where television wasn't mainstream? And when you think about the potential of humanity, part of what I believe, Kimberly Faith, my own personal belief, is I believe the potential of humanity is held hostage by the fact that we are so into social media and into television and into all the other things that keep us from expressing ourselves in a creative fashion. So I gave up television 10 years ago. I'm not saying that everyone has to do that, but what I have found is that, and when I don't have that distraction, I can go into these zones that we're talking about here and make it incredibly powerful. Now, I have a confession, John will second this as well, Ken, is that I wasn't always very good about the decentrating part. Okay, John Bonzel used to give me all kinds of smack about that when we first met. I've gotten better at that. Ken constantly reminds me of that, but I actually do decentrate more than what people think. And I just want to really, as one person anyone who's looking for how do you have your life be more expressive and tap into more of that potential, this formula of what we're discussing here is incredibly powerful. Anybody want to add before we continue?
I'd like to come in on that response on that issue. In what it says in print, Walter states you can do creative endeavors for 2-hour windows, and you can go to another creative endeavor, but you got to put the creative endeavor down after about 2 hours. That was his measure, and that's why he could live 5 lives in one lifetime. When it comes to mechanical work, mowing the lawn, cleaning the house, shipping books, et cetera, that can be done over 14-hour days is what Leo and Margaret were doing. So that was much more mechanical. And of course, when you learn balance and rest, I'm fatigued. I need to rest right now. I'm thirsty. I need to get a glass of water. So you're always finding that you need that break. That's called inner voice will tell you, hey, take a breather. But he never suggested that you work on a painting, let's say of the wave painting. Would he work on it for 2 hours, go take a break and come back to the wave painting? He believed you had to go to another endeavor, creative endeavor, and that you could then put another 2 fresh hours on it. It was not going back to that 2 hour that he had logged on his creativity. That was creativity and mechanicalism.
So let's continue this conversation then, because actually in the next question there towards the bottom of page 480, the question was, can one decentrate and continue to work? And in the green brackets, it goes, no, unless your work is pure automatic routine, such as working on an assembly line. And this is what I wanted to highlight for everyone. The more creative your work is, which requires you to think, the more you need to decentrate to get more knowledge for you to think and to form by concentrating. So let's pause for a moment and ask everybody in the chat box, if you would, please put in there, how good are you at decentrating? Do you do that on a routine basis? How often each day do you go to a zero still point so that you can then be energized for the rest of the day? So I'd love to see what our participants say from our TikTok, our YouTube, our Instagram followers, Facebook. Please go ahead and chime in. So, Margaret, it seems like this next question that's on the bottom of page 480, you would be a great one to actually ask this question and answer it. And she says, they said, what do you personally do? Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay, hold on.
What do you personally do, Dr. and Leah Russell?
Oh, okay. Okay. What do you personally do, Dr. and Leah Russell, in your work to concentrate and decentrate? So would you like me to ask?
The answer, because I thought their answer was really wise.
Okay. Yeah. So answer. We take the most important work first. If that work is a portrait sitting or writing a book, we start it full of the vigor which follows a long night of decentration, which is rest from thinking and rest of body, or reinvigorated by 2 hours of other kind of work, which is in itself a relaxation. We work for 2 hours, for experience tells us that we can do creative work for 2 hours. Then we stop, decentrate for a short time, and can do equally well at something else for 2 hours. And we can do that continually for 10 to 14 hours without ever feeling fatigued.
I'll be done. Look at that.
You know,
Wow.
Leo did work very long hours, and sometimes I wonder if she would have lived to be in her 90s if she hadn't overworked, because you can overdo it too. Sometimes when a person's desire is so great, they can't stop themselves, and so you can actually wear your body down. The body is a tool, but it can wear out. So I often think that, you know, actually with a person of her mental power, she should have lived to be in her 90s, but she overworked herself.
Wow. John?
I was going to say to Margaret, if she wouldn't have chased all those young men that came into the palace, you would have jumped in there and helped Leo a little more. She might have made it into her 90s, but
I don't know where that came from.
It's humor.
So let's scroll down to the next question on the bottom of page 482. And the question is this: could you give an example of concentration and decentration in some material form other than mental to help us understand it better? And the answer is this. They said, yes, we could give you thousands of such examples. Consider a big log of wood. Go up a little bit, James. It's above that. Keep going. Yep, up. Yep, right there with a bracket. Okay. It could be a big log of wood. In that dense form, it is concentrated into the body of an idea. Put it in the fire, and it decentrates to gases and smoke, and only the idea lives on, for the body disappears. Consider a bowl of water. It is concentrated. Stand it in the sun for a few hours and it disappears. It has decentrated. All right. So that's where we are. Now, John, the next question is this, though, but is that only compression and expansion? Are they the same effects? And John, what do they say?
Yes.
there you go. I was going to say, I don't even think I need to see the answer
Yeah.
to answer that one, but
You know.
but the Russells say exactly everything in nature is either concentrating or decentrating. Call it compression and expansion if you wish, for both are one, except for the fact that the connotation of the words makes it necessary to apply concentration and decentration to a mental effect in one's thinking, while compression and expansion are better words to use as applied to the same effect in an engine. You want me to continue through that?
Well, you can explain it. And remember, we have our things here because the next question gets even deeper. So just know that the next question goes into generation and radiation.
Yeah, if, to kind of simplify all of this, it's just simply compression, expansion, male, female. All right, Kimberly, I think you've got there they are.
It.
So whether it's, whether it's the water, whether it's the water in the bowl and it disappears, well, it comes into the bowl in one direction, then it goes out of your sense range in the other direction, only to hit that wall of inertia and then reverse its process. And so go ahead, Kimberly, can you spin one of those?
All right, so
there you go. Compression, expansion. Look how
Let it
simple
come out the other side.
now, first of all, let's give a lot of credit to our team member Joey, who helped us figure out how to 3D print the colors. So these are the only ones in the universe. Although I guess God made the first one, so you all know what I'm saying. So, John, what do you want to say?
There's another thing about concentration and decentration. Like if you take our breathing, when you breathe in, the compression is within ourselves, but simultaneously, the decentration happens simultaneously. So you've got concentration within, but decentration outside. When you breathe out, you have decentration within ourselves, but compression outside of ourselves. So it's simultaneously voiding itself as it's occurring.
Yes. Okay, so let's go to a couple of comments here. So Anne Marie says this when we asked about that question. She says, I do intervals, creative work projects, and then do something around the house. So there you go. I relate to this concept very, very well. So Anne Marie, you already intuitively had an understanding of this. Next comment from Karen says this one. She says, yes, I'm not as good at it. I overdo a lot. And now that I can see this miracle of balance, to rest and start again on something else. Okay. All right. So here we go. Now, because we still have a lot of other questions, my friends on the panel, I am going to jump ahead a little bit here. And I wanted to go down to one of the answers on page 483 in the yellow brackets, because they were talking about, and they were talking about thinking, and right there, and it says, the more we can induce you to form the habit of thinking in terms of the universal heartbeat, which pumps inward, which you were saying, Margaret, from the outside, and outward from the inside of your breathing, which also pumps inward and then outward to expand, so that it can again compress, the farther you will go in life. So I'm just going to ask for our seasoned students to comment on this, is that you've been living these lessons for 30 years, for 50 years, and Karen, you've also been living it for over a decade here. What would you say to someone brand new who is tuning into this idea of the universal heartbeat? John?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Karen. Well, I think what would help, and this is what I've done for a long time, is in your everyday, whether it's in nature or your everyday interactions with people or in your working, is try to find examples of compression and expansion. That's all there is in the universe. And the more you can identify those sequences, it will help you to understand that that's all there is. So, for example, right. So if you stop in something and you never bring it to fruition, then you have residue, you have unbalance. And until you finish it, that residue is going to sit there. All right. So I think that word is what our lesson this evening has been all about through these questions and answers, is how to find balance, and how to find balance in all transactions. So again, I would refer our audience to just look out through the world and through nature and just find simple examples of that compression expansion, and it'll go a long way for them.
Very, very well said. Karen, you have a thought, and then I'm going to go to jump ahead to a question on the bottom of page 483.
It goes back to the circuit, because your body operates just like an electrical circuit, just like the moon, how it cycles, how we start high, it goes down, it needs to regenerate, it goes back up again, and then exactly how the heart pumps. And so it starts powerful, and then it gets to the bottom, and then it needs to pump back up. So it's telling you the cycles, but it's actually the heartbeat of how your own heart works. So if you actually pay attention as an electrical circuit, you kind of get that following nature is it. John's got one.
Well, I was just going to build on Karen's mentioning of the heart. And so you have our arterial system and our venous system, right? And one's blue and one's red. So we'll let our audience figure out which one's male and which one's female.
You already told us.
Oh.
Emily and I got confused.
All right, so I'm going to jump ahead because I work hard to pull out the practical things, and we still have a few more questions and answers, because I do want to spend some time on Walter and Leo's closing letter in this particular unit. But the question is at the bottom of page 483 says this. They were referring to where above it says meditation induces inspiration, and they said, I wish you would explain that idea further. I always thought it was absolutely imperative that we think and reason things out. And their answer was this, and I'll be asking the group to discuss this. If you know a thing, and for those of you that have your home study course, please highlight that word know in all caps. If you know a thing, you can take it apart by thinking it into form through action. But if you only half know a thing or do not know it at all, but try to think it out by comparing one condition or thing or experience with another through your senses, you have but guessed or experimented. You may progress slowly, but you waste time. Quick solutions to creative problems lie within the stillness of yourself. And so listen closely to this next one, and I'll ask the team to comment. If you take a little walk in the woods and talk with God about it, you will not need to guess or reason or to think about it. Think it out. Always remember that your mind, in all caps, can tell you more in a minute than your senses can tell you in years. Margaret?
I think that takes a lot of fine tuning too. Like a lot of people are not at that stage yet, perhaps, but it's probably a methodology to really try and fine tune and learn and practice. But if you do go quiet and, and earnestly desire an answer to your issue or your problem, it will come. And a lot of it is just simply starting by some kind of action. Because once you start with some kind of action, you feel like you're progressing and you won't feel as stressed. So I would say first go quiet, and then at least, even if it's doing something mechanical, normal mechanical work, and always have that kind of written on your heart, and the answer will come. Maybe not right away. It might even take 2 or 3 days, but it will come.
Well, and don't you find it fascinating? I want to bring to everyone's conscious awareness of just how noisy the world is. Do you really think that's an accident? Do you think it's an accident that we have a television in every corner of an airport? Do you think it's an accident that we're encouraged to have all kinds of music on at all times? Do you think it's an accident that the sound of social media is blaring in our ears? So if we really understand that the universe knows that silence is the way that we access all of this creativity and this inspiration, don't we find it rather interesting that the world is designed to be completely opposite? John?
I would like to make a comment about the experimentation part that the Russell said there. Dr. Russell was the sculptural biographer for Thomas Edison, and he knew him very well. In one of Dr. Russell's lectures, he talks about all the experimentation that Edison did and the years that it took him to finalize the idea of the light bulb. And Dr. Russell had an opportunity to share with him that if he would have taken more time to lie down on that couch in his office, and seek that inspiration and that stillness, the answer would have come to him a lot quicker. And that's not saying that there's things wrong with experimentation, because like Margaret was saying, eventually the answer will come to you, through trial and error and trial and error.
Right.
But if you just go to God and say, hey, God, what is the next thing I do? And if you'll listen, the answer will be there for you. But I just wanted to share, how.
I love that story, John. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that. I love that. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there. So we do have more to cover. It is time for our next break, since I know we're off kilter just a bit. When we return, I want to let the panel know we're going to quickly go through some of the next questions. And then we're going to talk about the letter at the end, because there's some really important elements. So everyone, enjoy your 3 minutes, decentrate to come back for more. All right. If you're within earshot, if you'll find your way back. Find your way back. We have a few more things to discuss. Want to thank everyone for being here, and thanks for the comments that we have here in the chat box. Because of time, I do want to skip down to the bottom of page 485, because the answer is so poetic, although we won't be able to do the whole answer. But in the highlighted sentence, it says this. The question, okay, on the bottom of page 485, keep going, keep going. Keep going, James. All right, right there. You speak of knowing the unreality of the material universe and knowing it to be an illusion. So, John, if you would, I know we could read the whole big section, but for right now, tonight's time, if you'll simply read to the bottom of that page, because this is from the Divine Iliad, and it is so incredibly poetic. You're on mute, John.
Behold, in me, the one inseparable. Two things there are not in my universe. There is but me. Everything that is. Of everything that is. Nothing is of itself alone. All things are indissolubly united. This is a universe of seeming, an imaged universe of thinking, an action universe of desiring. That which mind desires will appear in the image of that desire.
So we're not going to be able to read the whole next page, but I do want to pull that up. And James, if we could try to shrink it, I just want to mention a couple of things. It says, without motion, my cosmic play could not be played, nor could its actors be. Without change, my undivided one idea could not unfold. Without time, my drama of my creating universe could have no sequence. And for all of you that are home study, you have your own home study course, because we recommend this to everyone. On page 486, please star that page and spend some time in meditation. There are so many nuggets. You can scroll down and see how much I highlighted, how much I starred. I mean, we could spend the whole session right there on this Divine Iliad. And for me, I find the Divine Iliad is actually, describe, John, if you would, what was the Divine Iliad for any of those who are new listening tonight?
The Divine Iliad was the direct recording, if you will, of Dr. Russell writing down his 39 day and night illumination. And the meter in which the Divine Iliads are written is basically it's like Dr. Russell was taking dictation from God. That would be the best way to explain it. And you have to read it, and you have to start slowly. And it's a 2-book volume. But once you kind of familiarize yourself with that meter, it really will start to resonate with you, and you'll kind of be, you'll almost be overwhelmed in a sense. And
Yes.
if I could, Kimberly, I just wanted we could come up with one word to describe all that you and I read. And that is light, the undivided light of the one.
Yes. And so while we at the Awaken Show focus on the man who tapped the secrets of the universe in the home study course, they do reference in the home study course some of the other works of the Walter Russell. You can find those at philosophy.org. You can use a code called Awaken10 to get a discount on those other things. And I wanted to share with the panel, it was a very exciting weekend here. They had a big event in Waynesboro, and 500 people came through the museum. Margaret, you were actually here yesterday, and you saw, because you see people's response to what's happening. Anything you want to share with the group? And for my other team, we're going to be going there to the middle of 488 in just a moment.
Yeah, it was a real highlight, because it was largely local people. And so the Russell Museum had really tremendous exposure, and it takes the mystery out really of what the museum is. And then I met several people that actually had been up to Swannanoa when the Russells were there and when I was there. So that was quite surprising too, to actually meet people that, from that long ago. So I thought it was a great event, and the people were very appreciative of it as well.
Well, and everyone that's on the screen and every one of you that are listening here, please understand that you are part of continuing this legacy. And John, I know that you were incredibly committed to preserving the legacy of Walter and Leo Russell as well. And I believe that even 10 years out, 20 years out, people are going to be even more appreciative. Why is it so important for all the work that everyone's doing to preserve this legacy for the future? And then after you, I'm going to ask Karen to chime in.
Well, this message, if you will, that the Russells delivered, if it is accepted, if it is spread throughout the world, then mankind will save himself from himself. And I cannot think of any other message on this planet that is as complete as this home study course. The cosmogony of man. Yes. And the cosmos. And so you can go far and wide, and anybody that wants to jump in and say they found something better and more proficient in describing this, then man, bring it here. I'd love to study it.
Karen, why do you believe it's so important for us to preserve the legacy?
As I've been doing the magazines over the last 15 years, I always go back to Walter Russell. I always find that there's that truth in it, and it's a thing that bridges everything else. And
Yes.
the more I get it, the deeper I know it. And it is the fundamental core of what I have focused on, but also every other seed brings me back to Walter Russell.
Well, and what I love about the Russell work is that to me, it's like having the outer puzzle pieces for all the other things that many of us have studied in our lifetime.
Yep.
And it's like a lovely way to be able to place that all together. So due to time, I'm going to jump ahead to page 490. And the question is this. It says, you have both spoken so many times about knowing all there is to know timelessly. Okay, so we're on 490, timelessly. And no matter how I try to think it out, I cannot understand it. Everything takes at least some time to create. Could you clear that up a little for me? John, what was their answer?
Their answer is, you are right when you say that every creating thing takes time. For example, if it takes 50 years of time to grow an oak tree from a seed, but if you look at an oak seed, you can know the oak tree, which is within, is timelessly. Knowledge of idea does not belong to a three-dimensional space, time, and thought universe. Knowledge of idea and the qualities which belong to the light of God's still universe of mind are timeless. It is only the expression of an idea which takes time. By expression of an idea, we mean giving it a material body. It means transforming qualities of the still light, which you cannot sense, into quantities of the moving lights, which you can sense. So that's pretty simple. A lot of words, but it's pretty simple, right? It's a thought wave universe. Thinking and desire are the two most powerful things in the universe. And once you can kind of allow yourself to accept that, you'll start seeing yourself start achieving things that you thought perhaps were impossible at one time.
So Ken, the very last comment on the next page that we have highlighted is really where we started our home study course, and it talks about all questions are. Would you mind reading that, please?
Yeah, but I just have to come back to what Mr. Bonds will say. I would put it in the state of desiring and knowing. Thinking could be very confusing because we think with our brain, we know with our mind. So knowing and desiring, I believe, are the two most powerful elements. And I think that's probably what he was saying. Anyway, I formulate questions to ask you. Then I study a little more and find that I myself am able to answer them. That is wonderful. And it is as it should be. For this home study course is not to add to your information, but to give you fundamental knowledge, which is not encyclopedia, but it is God's omniscience awakened in you. We therefore close this chapter as we began it by God's message to you, which says, all questions are answerable in the light. Thou art light, thou can answer them. And that's been relayed tonight. When you go to sleep, if you have an issue, ask for answers. Go to sleep knowing you're not going to get your answers unless you go to sleep. So you toss and turn and flip-flop, you're not going to sleep. God is not going to answer them unless you get to let it go. So that's the action reaction sequence. But you're a part of that sequence in terms of the petition, and then the performance is going to sleep knowing that I'll wake with the answers. If the performance is, I can't sleep, I just can't get it out of my head, well, then you're not really truly giving it to God to answer for you or for your consciousness. So in
let's
terms of
bring
that,
up, yes.
I hope that answers that question.
Yes, let's bring up Karen's comment there in the chat box here. Karen says this, and the other Karen, if you would read her comment, please.
I love this work. I feel like I waited all my life for this, and everything prepared me. My thinking brought me here.
Amen to that. Or my desire. Karen corrected her own self. She says, my desire brought me there.
Here you go. We got a bingo.
My desire.
So for the crew, what I'd like to do is point out a couple of things that really touched my heart in Leo and Walter's wrap up letter here. And so as we scroll to 493, I'd like to bring out a few things and then ask you all to comment. First of all, in the blue highlighted section, I want just everyone to notice that it says our dear friends and students. And so, Margaret, if you would just comment, that's really how their approach was, is that they saw everyone not only as students, but as dear friends. Can you comment on that?
Yes, Leo always saw herself in everyone. And so when they wrote the home study course, they really, really simplified it. And I know for new students tuning in, maybe some of the language is a little different, but Leo really, really tried to simplify it as much as possible. And I just recently proofread Atomic Suicide because we're going into a reprint, and it gave me an even greater appreciation for how Leo influenced Walter Russell in simplifying the science. And so that's why, I think when she wrote it, she was really writing it to beginning students. And so it's very personable in the way that she wrote. And that's why she always starts out with dear friends and students, because she really saw herself in everybody.
Well, and I wanted to bring that out, Margaret, because that's what I sensed. And as the letter continued, I want to go to the highlighted sentence, and it says, to truly know yourself is to know all mankind. And with this knowledge comes not only greater happiness in life because of a sense of belonging, but a multiplication of personal power for expression spiritually, mentally, and physically. And in the next paragraph, they go on to talk more about the law of balance. And as you scroll down, I want to refer to the paragraph when they said, your letters to us throughout the many months have been an ever greater source of inspiration and delight. We cannot adequately describe the happiness and satisfaction they give us in knowing how much the home study course has done and is doing for the multiplication of power through the unfolding of your cosmic awareness. We are especially pleased to know that whole families and many couples are studying the course together. And so could the panel refer to that? Because studying this as a collective has a different kind of power. John, can you comment?
Well,
now you want to come back?
John?
I really don't know what to say to that because I haven't experienced that in my own personal life. I got 5 people on the screen here, and then I have all these people in the audience that I've never seen or met. But yet here we are sharing and expressing this message. And but that's the intent. I believe that's an intentional statement there, that it's to be shared with loved ones and family and friends and so on. And if you're lucky enough to be able to do that, that's a wonderful thing. And that was how the message was to be spread.
Well, and that's what I wanted to bring up because I thought that was a beautifully said. And I wanted to go ahead and jump down here to the bottom of page 494. We recognize with honor that everyone is probably pretty worn out from a pretty holiday weekend. But if we'll jump down to the bottom of page 494 where I have it highlighted, and it says this: the Divine Iliad message tells us that people will not listen until they have suffered enough. World suffering is now limited to fear intentions. Must our people be stripped of their luxuries, their homes, and their freedom before they fully awaken and arise to the last man? We hope not. Now, what I thought was intriguing about this paragraph was the fact that this was written in the 1950s, and here we are, 2024, and it still is relevant today. Margaret?
Yeah, it sure is. And, Leo, I always said that, what's happening worldwide could eventually happen here. And of course, they always say what happens anywhere happens everywhere. So, we should really feel sensitive to the plight of people in other countries because it could happen to us at any time. you know.
Well, and that was their message, Margaret. As we scroll down here, I want to point out to everybody on the place there on 495, where I have it highlighted and yellow circled, is then I want to say this to everyone who is listening to this now or in the future. You are to be the seed of the new cosmic age. So this is why all of us are on the screen doing this. And as it goes into the blue highlight, it says the most important lesson man must learn is how to live in peace with his fellow man. And Karen, I know that's a big sweet spot for you about learning to live in peace with your fellow man.
Yep. But I think the more we study the work in the sense and understand natural law, we can learn to be more peacefully in it and be respectful that we are really made of the same thing, and that we need to be conscious of how we treat others.
And there towards the end of a 495, it says this: as you restudy these 24 lessons, so we're halfway through the home study course. Can we just celebrate this for a moment? Everybody do a little dance, maybe pat yourself on the back. We are halfway through the home study course. This has been
I'll drink to that.
lovely labor of
We would be a lot more rested had we gotten our breaks, but yeah, go ahead.
And it says, so she says, as you restudy these 24 lessons, and we trust that each year of your life you will restudy them, you will be amazed perhaps at the change in your thinking, for such a change is gradual. And so final comments here to the panel as we're wrapping up. And anybody here from our participants, our students that are listening as well, final comments. We don't have a video to end tonight as we finish this holiday weekend. We will be starting in Unit 7 next, but what else do you want to say? What needs to be said here this evening from any of you?
I'd like to say something and give Margaret some. I thought what she said was very profound about proofreading atomic suicide. And I know that in Margaret's story, what brought her up to the mountain to meet Leo and get involved in this was atomic suicide. So to hear 50 plus years later to make a pass, and she just said, and I got to see more, even more this time, and see the beauty of how this was brought together by the grace of God, for sure.
Margaret, you got a comment, and then John?
You know, what I was really grateful for yesterday is I'm realizing that people are really, really awakening, because I spoke with one lady, she's from Georgia, and she had visited her daughter who lives in Waynesboro. And she was expressing Leo's philosophy, even though she hadn't read Leo Russell. So I just had to donate the love book to her because I knew it was going to resonate with her. And she was expressing it not so much in a religious way either, but in a very intuitive way, just based on her own life experience. And she was, you know, middle-aged, had a grandchild that had a lot of health issues, and a daughter that also had health issues, and she had to help them through it. But here this woman had, you know, just a tremendous compassion. And I made the remark to her, I said, you know, a man's work is always very visible, but a woman's work is invisible. And she really resonated with that, because she's worked very hard all her life supporting her daughter and grandchild and her husband. But she was really deep in her knowledge already, just through living. It was amazing.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting to see the awakening of humanity. John, and then I'll have Karen, and then I'll finish up this evening as we finish up our first day of December.
Well, a few paragraphs up, the Russells mentioned about oneness and other people. So once you can grasp your oneness with your Creator, and then you can transfer that oneness to everyone that you see. Remember in the Iliad, God said there are no two separable things in the universe. So when you can someday look at another human being and see them as you, and attach the same qualities to them that you do of yourself, and you're living, you've made it. And think of what a world it would be if everyone could see and respect each other as themselves, it'd be a wonderful thing. So that's maybe the ultimate goal of
It
our
is.
teachings and the effort that we're putting forward this evening.
Wow. So well said. So well said. Karen?
I'm going to pass on this one. Go ahead.
All right. So I just simply want to thank everyone. What a wonderful conversation here. Please know that this panel is pouring a lot of love and effort and energy into this. I want to say a gracious thank you to everyone who's on this panel. There's lots of work that go behind the scenes. Joey and James keep us all on track behind the scenes. All of our social media comes from our team as well. And just please know that here we are broadcasting from the Russell Museum. And I want to say a gracious thank you. It is such an honor to be on the journey with all of you. And I second what Margaret said, is that this is one of the most exciting times, I believe, in the history or the future of humanity, as we are awakening and watching a whole society move into cosmic consciousness. And wow, we cannot even imagine what's ahead. And so Anne-Marie says it best as we're wrapping up here. And she says this, Karen, if you would read it for us.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this evening's conversations.
A gracious thank you to you all. Have a wonderful week. Next week, we'll be starting on Unit 7. So we encourage everyone to still, if you can, get a copy of the home study course. We provide a link there below. And as you're tuning in, just know that this will be one of the most precious gifts that you have given to yourself and to the universe. So much love to you all. We won't say goodbye. We will say until next time.